What's cool is you can mute this entire film and probably still get the main points if you just watched it.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is on mute.
Yeah. So. It's like I said, I think that's a testament more to, if you see it in a positive, it's to the direction, the choreography, the writing itself towards the storytelling without using words. I enjoy stuff like that a lot. Yeah. It's almost like an experimental take on a action film.
Yeah, I like to imagine, like, what if Joss Whedon was told for the Avengers they had to do these like long silent battles?
God, yeah.
It's like, what do I do with my quips?
Yeah, I got all these quips. I don't know what to do. Hello and welcome to the Critical Breakdown, the podcast where we start at the bottom of Rotten Tomatoes and work our way to 100% fresh. I'm Max.
And I'm Scott, and today we're talking Conan the Barbarian, rated 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, and not Jason Momoa.
Yeah, we're doing the 1982 Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. What's the 2011 rated? I didn't actually look that up.
It's like 36 or something like that.
That sounds about right.
It's sub 50. We may have discussed watching it.
Yeah. Check the archives, Todd.
It's a letdown.
Yeah. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've seen it.
Well, save it. We'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Even though I asked you, save it.
We'll talk about it when we get there. If we ever get there.
We will.
Yeah.
What have you been watching, my dude?
Been watching a lot of shows. It's been a TV week for me.
Okay. Big TV week.
Yeah, big TV week for me at House Rivera. I finished off the Defenders.
Right. 8-episode run.
Yeah.
What's the letter grade that you give it?
I'd give it like a B+. B+.
It's
pretty strong. It's not as good as just the solo Daredevil series for me.
Yeah.
It's about on par with Jessica Jones, just less.
But you didn't finish Jessica Jones, right?
Yeah, no, it was hard for me to watch it. It's just very heavy subject matter. It's good, but it was just hard to watch. A lot of like mind control and taking away her choice and stuff like that. So
gotcha.
It's just a hard watch. But
anyways,
but I like Kristen Ritter a lot, so I do like her show and her character.
Yeah. So
I enjoyed her a lot in this. No, it was good. It was a good balance of the characters. The ones I didn't know, I kind of got to know them in the series, so that was good.
Yeah.
And then there's a lot of characters in there that were good. So good, powerful ending, and it led to like a good comic book moment that is from my favorite Daredevil comic. So I'm excited about that.
All right.
And it looks like if they're doing a third season of Daredevil, which I'm pretty sure they are.
Yeah, I can't imagine them not.
The image they evoked is like from his best run of comics, basically. So.
Was it just Ben Affleck and Colin Farrell?
Basically. No, they evoke some images from this comic series he's in called Born Again, where it's really about kind of the balancing of Matt Murdock versus Daredevil, which has always been kind of the key factor for his character.
Yeah, for sure.
So it really lets him like come to terms with it.
Yeah.
Now the comic itself does the very last issue deals with the Avengers as well, just for like a brief situation.
Yeah.
I doubt they'll bring the Avengers in.
I can't imagine just with the stars of the Avengers.
No. It would be amazing if they did, but I doubt it.
They could do Iron Man, all in suit, so don't need to worry about that.
Yeah. No, it's it's a great comic series, so I'm hoping they do actually dip into that and do some stuff with it. So
cool.
It'll be good.
Right on, man.
What about you? What have you been watching?
Well, you've been on a TV kick, and I've been on a movie kick.
Ooh.
I watched a new release, Kingsman: The Golden Circle.
Mm-hmm. You're a big enough fan of the first one.
It's funny. I don't even love the first one. I like it a lot, but I feel like I bring it up all the time.
Yeah,
because it does some things better than a lot of movies.
If it's an action movie and it has your love, or at least your appreciation, it's doing something.
Yeah, and The Golden Circle I thought was fine too. It got really mixed reviews, which was kind of off-putting a little bit. They just came out with like a big study that someone did about how Rotten Tomatoes doesn't actually affect people going to the box office, and I don't really know what to think of that. It definitely affects me because I saw this is at a 50% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I almost didn't go.
Yeah,
I'm glad I did though, because it's honestly just more of the same from the first one. There was a couple weird choices they made, but for the most part, it was fine. It was honestly a little slower than the first one. That worked for me.
Yeah,
like all the crazy action is in the trailer for the most part. Like, it's not that over the top other than maybe 2 or 3 action sequences.
Yeah.
So, but I thought it was fine.
I'm not against watching Kingsman. I've only seen one scene from it, and it just didn't make me want to see it from the first one. And it was just one of those posts on Reddit, you got to check out the scene type of things. And I was like,
it the church scene?
It was the church scene. I was just like, this looks dumb.
Yeah,
so I just
that scene's a bad example of the movie because it's literally unlike the entire movie.
Yeah.
And people love it because it's just like bombastic action.
We've been doing this long enough where I know that one scene doesn't represent the whole film, but no, it's just one of those things where I was like, yeah, no rush on that.
Yeah.
I'll catch it eventually. Yeah. But no, I've heard some mixed stuff on this sequel. I've heard some people say it's too long.
I didn't notice the length, which is usually means it's not that long in my opinion, or not too long in my opinion. I feel like once you start noticing like, wow, I can't believe this is still going, that's when it's too long. Like, I kind of felt that about Conan the Barbarian at times.
Oh, wow.
No, the cool thing about Kingsman was Julianne Moore was a great villain. You could tell she really enjoyed the role. And they did a really good job of setting up future set pieces by bringing in the location or the item or the activity or whatever way earlier in the movie, and then bringing it up again later, so you're already like grounded in that area, even though some of it's really weird stuff. So
that's Matthew Vaughn, right?
Yep.
He's talented. He does good stuff.
He does good stuff. If you like the first one, I bet you'd like the second one. So check it out. But if not, you probably won't like the second one that much. For being real.
You not got any other movies?
Yeah, I watched The Magnificent Seven.
Oh, yeah.
It's one when it came out, and I just was like, yeah, I don't want to watch it.
There's no rush to see it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like a touch point.
It wasn't a touch point.
You can catch it whenever.
I'll touch it some other time.
It's a remake of a movie that's a remake, so it's already like strange. I guess a remake of an adaptation remake is what you would say, but yeah.
This one was fine, though. I was glad that it wasn't just a Denzel movie.
Yeah.
Or
like just a Chris Pratt movie.
Yeah, Chris Pratt's big enough that it could have been just a Chris Pratt.
You think they handled the ensemble well?
Yeah, I think they did. At least most of it. A couple of the characters, like there was an American Indian character who had basically no characterization.
Yeah.
I feel like, honestly, he was just kind of thrown in for representation.
Just to make sure there's one in there. Yeah.
There was an Asian character that didn't need to be Asian at all. Like that wasn't anything about his character. So maybe that's fine. But being in the Wild West,
historically in the Wild West, there were a lot of Asian populations from the Gold Rush and from the West Coast.
I didn't realize that. So maybe that makes sense then.
Yeah.
But no, Ethan Hawke was really good in it. Vincent D'Onofrio was really good in it. So
I like Vincent D'Onofrio.
Yeah.
He's always been like a really intense actor, which is funny because my first exposure to him, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, but there's this old movie called Adventures in Babysitting. And
I'm familiar, but I don't know
it. I'm trying to think the people you would know. Elizabeth Shue plays the babysitter. So you'd know her, and then Vincent D'Onofrio, he plays a car mechanic who has like kind of stringy, longer blonde hair. He's really fit. And the youngest child in this babysitting adventure believes him to be Thor, her favorite comic book character. Yeah. She actually has a Thor helmet and makes him wear it at one point. He has a big hammer because he's working on their car. Yeah. And it's like a really like cool, iconic 80s scene that was just like, he's wearing like a blue tank top or something. But like I said, he's like...
It's enough.
It's not Vincent D'Onofrio now where he's like, bald and big and stuff like that. It's like a very young, fit Vincent D'Onofrio. So that's like my first exposure to him. And he's intense in that movie.
Yeah.
And it's like a really goofy family film. So it's funny to see him now as like this intense actor who does like character roles and stuff.
Edge of intensity.
Yeah, nah.
He was good in this. And the only problem with the movie was the villain. Peter Sarsgaard plays this like kind of generic, I want your land villain. And they give him nothing to do really.
Yeah.
But it's a movie where everything builds up to like the final set piece. And I always like those movies because there's a lot of good characterization in the first 2 acts. And then the last act is just all the explosions packed together.
I'll tell you what, now that I've seen Unforgiven, it'll be hard to see a Western that doesn't have such a compelling villain in it, where it's like the good guy and the bad guy at the same time on both sides.
There it goes.
So, that'll definitely be...
this is not as good as Unforgiven.
Oh, I'm sure.
Most Westerns probably aren't, but...
Remind me a little bit later something about Unforgiven, but let's not get into that yet, okay?
Okay, I'm sure I'll remember.
Yeah, I'll remember if not.
Anything else on your deck?
Yeah, I've started revisiting an old kind of guilty pleasure favorite of mine.
Yeah.
It's a show called Legend of the Seeker.
Yeah.
It's a fantasy show made by the same, I want to say the same studios that made like Hercules and Xena just years later. And
I watched about 15 minutes with you earlier, and I can see that.
Yeah. It's a pre-Game of Thrones fantasy show, so that should like set the bar for everybody.
Well, it just kind of changes the way, like after Game of Thrones, everything tries to take those aspects.
Serious, like gritty, character-driven. And this one, like the three main characters are pretty well developed. I think by season 2, they started developing out other like characters, but it only had 2 seasons. It's a really goofy show. I just kind of love it because it's sincere in its goofiness. It's not great.
It's definitely cheesy.
Yeah, and it leans in on that sometimes, and it's not. I don't know. It's an easy watch basically. It's like like a sitcom's an easy watch. It's just kind of that for me. So the characters are all either like I said, the 3 main characters are actually pretty good actors, and they're fine. One of them is the only person people would really recognize is Bruce Spence, who I mentioned earlier. Yeah. He's in the Mad Max series. He played the Mouth of Sauron in the extended Return of the King. And he's just like a little character actor who's always in weird shit. He played like one of the aliens in Revenge of the Sith. Just like a random alien. I
recognize his face.
Yeah. He's just like real big character actor. Yeah. But everyone else is all like random Lord of the Rings extras or just like up and coming actors at the time. Sure. They've gone on to do a couple other things here and there.
And when did this air? 2009, 2008?
It was like 2008 through 10. I want to say it was like I said, like literally right before Game of Thrones. Yeah. And I'm sure HBO was like, don't make it like that. Make it like
do different.
Yeah. So no, it's a fun watch. It's on Hulu if you just want like a fun. If you want something as fun as like Hercules and Xena, but with better graphics, for the most part, their effects are a lot better. They actually had like a decent budget. There's a couple CGs stuff that's not good, but
sure.
But no, I mean, it's your standard running show. 2 seasons. I'll probably knock it out by like next episode or the episode after that. So but I've been watching that. That's been good.
It's nice to get a little fantasy here and there.
Yeah.
Filling the Thrones gap.
I did watch a movie last week that I didn't get to mention. I watched The Golden Child, which is an 80s Eddie Murphy film.
Yeah, with
Charles Dance.
Yeah, Charles Dance.
That's probably the 2 most recognizable people in the movie. Yeah. It's like the weird Asian fantasy thing that was going on in the 80s, like urban fantasy with Asian setting as well. Big Trouble and Little Tokyo, or Little China, Big Trouble in Little China. All like that was another one. That one was like way more racist than Golden Child. Golden Child kind of toes the line on a lot of stuff. There's also a movie from like the same era called The Last Dragon, which kind of had this idea of like almost like a black take on Bruce Lee. So there was quite a few just weird Asian fantasy drama, like urban dramas going on in the 80s, and The Golden Child's probably the most innocent of them. At its heart, it's just a fun family film, but like I think that's what Roger Ebert said, it's not going to like blow you away, but it's a fun watch from beginning to end. And it showed that Eddie Murphy, he could do his comedy, he could do his like cop comedy that he was pretty good at, and
outside
he could
of the cop setting.
Yeah, and he could do, like a fantasy family kind of thing. So it kind of showed more diversity in his side, more than just like the vulgar humor that he was known for. Of course, it was in there, but it wasn't as much.
Yeah. Would you count Rumble in the Bronx in this genre?
That's more 90s, and since it's a transplant from, it's a foreign film brought over, I would kind of exclude it as a, that's like the Jackie Chan genre, which is a genre unto itself. Right. So, no, I mean, there's a couple other things that probably we wouldn't even hear about. When one of these movies takes off and there's like a bunch of clones of it, and you have like copycats
that
everywhere.
Are like cheaply made.
Yeah, and they just
trying to get in on that.
They just like are
action,
trying to milk out the money there. Yeah.
Well, they really tried to milk the money out of the Conan franchise. One could say.
You really could say that.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why, some pre-trivia for you.
Oh.
Arnold signed on for like a 5-picture deal to get Conan made.
Oh.
And they were hoping for sequels to the film, but they just like signed him for 5 pictures in general.
They should have put him in the 2011 one as like a background character, because like, you already signed up, man.
Yeah, or like his father in that one or something. Yeah. But no.
Maybe he is. I don't know. Wait, you've seen it.
Yeah, I've seen it. It's Ron Perlman plays his father.
Maybe he is.
Maybe. No.
Well, Max, what's the plot synopsis for Conan the Barbarian?
A barbarian warrior sets off to avenge his parents and his tribe, whom were slain by an evil sorcerer and his henchmen when he was just a boy.
He was just a boy.
He's just a boy.
So this is like your pretty classic fantasy stuff, right?
Yeah, it's fantasy. It's not high fantasy. It's sword and sorcery. It's gritty.
So what, for our audience and maybe one of the hosts of the show, what would you describe as sword and sorcery in 140 characters or less?
Sword and sorcery is a low magic setting, so there could still be magic, but it's low. And it's more about kind of like the darker side. It's not humanity working together as a whole to accomplish something. It's usually a smaller scale.
Okay.
There's probably an evil guy. Usually it's, kind of creepy cultist type of stuff.
What's the bill here?
A lot of revenge stories. Sword and sorcery is more like gritty necromancer type of stuff.
Okay.
A lot of your D&D type of settings would dip into that. If you take out like the high magic concept, high magic and high fantasy would be more like Lord of the Rings, very high fantasy. Kind of tricky though, because that one is low magic. There's a lot of magic in Lord of the Rings, but it's more like behind the scenes type of stuff, or magical like items and environments. Trinkets. But Harry Potter would be more like a high fantasy in a modern setting. Yeah. So I mean, there's all sorts of like
every
subgenres. But sword and sorcery is usually known for like muscly men, half naked women, snakes. There's always snakes. Willow. I feel like Willow would be more high fantasy. But there is some hints. You're right there that there's some hints of it. There's some hints of sword and sorcery in there, just because it's kind of like a lower take on the story. It's not like top of the world. It's the little guy.
Is that a height thing you're doing?
No, it's actually not. But that's kind of what George Lucas went for. That's what he said. He wanted the story about the little guy, like literally. It's like, I want it about the little guy, literally.
Well, that was a good Bill Murray.
Thanks. I've been practicing.
Well, this was directed by John Milius.
Yeah, Milius.
Milius. What else did he...
His film that people would know the most would probably be Red Dawn is a big one. He's had a ton of movies, though. More during that time period. He wrote Jaws.
Wow.
He wrote Apocalypse Now.
Wow.
He wrote and directed Conan the Barbarian.
I heard that somewhere.
He wrote and directed Red Dawn.
Yeah.
He wrote The Hunt for Red October.
Oh, so he's got a nice writing career for sure.
Yeah. And then he switched to TV and did a bunch of TV also. He wrote Rome, some of the episodes of that TV show, which I like a lot.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he did some Miami Vice writing. He's all over. Recently, I think he's had some health issues and he's kind of like retired from the scene, but I think he's worked on some video games and stuff. And he's kind of well known, though. I mean, he has like in the film community, people will bring him up every now and then.
Didn't Red Dawn get remade around the same time?
Yeah, I think actually it did, and it was like in development hell where it got like stuck on the shelf. Yeah, they just shelved it until Chris Hemsworth got famous. I think. Yeah, like it got stuck in just editing and never got out. I want to say. I feel like it was like when is Chris Hemsworth in that one, or is it Liam?
No, it's Chris and Josh Peck or whatever from that Drake and Josh Nickelodeon show.
I don't remember all the people in it, but I know it was either when Hunger Games got big or when Thor got big.
I bet it was when Thor got big.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it's Chris. I haven't seen it. It got horrible reviews.
He was in I know Chris was in 4 movies that got pushed out after he got big, which is crazy that they just weren't known until then. But
it's why'd you make this movie then?
But no, it's directed by him. It's written by him as well, with the original script being written by Oliver Stone.
That's a weird one.
Yeah, and I was doing
nothing like anything he writes.
I was doing a little research, and apparently his Conan script was set in the far future in a post-apocalyptic setting.
This one could be too, for all intents. Parts when you
of it
do
seems
that
like
kind of
it,
movie, and you put it so far, it's like society's gone all the way back to the Stone Age. It's who cares?
It could work, and I think that's probably what Oliver Stone was thinking.
It's a separate world, so that doesn't matter. Past and future.
In the movie, it's hard to tell, but there's actually in the source material, there's a lot of tie-ins to kind of like a Neolithic age of our society. Okay. So a lot of things drawn from our own prehistory. The source material and the film are like way different. Some of the stuff is similar, like some of Conan's interactions with stuff would kind of fit with the character, but as a whole, the setting,
a lot of, nuance.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a debate to be had there, but I mean, it's Arnold playing a muscly warrior with a sword. You're not going to expect a lot of nuance, but
no.
Yeah.
Well, like you said, we have Arnold.
Mm-hmm.
What other names might we recognize? One off the bat would be James Earl Jones.
Yeah.
That's your Darth Vader himself.
Thulsa Doom.
That's a good name.
It is a
good
really
fantasy
good
name.
I want to say that's directly from the books, that name.
I believe it.
So it's too good not to be.
And he's kind of your primary villain.
Yeah.
There's another villain, Max von Sydow.
Is he a villain, though?
Was he? Wasn't he?
He was just the king who hired them. I don't think he did anything villainous. He just gave them a shit ton of money.
The snake people, right?
No, he was the one. Max von Sydow was the king who wanted him to pick up the his daughter. His daughter was
the princess.
Yeah. He was the king who just gave him take this goblet full of jewels. It weird role.
The red jewels. I remember he spilled it out on the ground too. Just a terrible way to do that.
Yeah, terrible.
It's just like pick up the jewels. You
had Sandahl Bergman.
Sandahl Bergman. Yeah, I recognize the name, and I'm sure she's done a lot of other stuff.
She plays Valeria in this.
Yeah, who's just like a thief, right?
Yeah, she's like a female thief, barbarian-ish.
She had no personal tie to the conflict.
Yeah, her only tie was that she ended up falling in love with Conan and wanted to help him.
But wasn't her introduction literally they just bumped into her?
Yeah, she was also thieving. So, which, I mean, in a lot of the source materials written by Robert E. Howard, it's most of them are just like Conan and this, or it'll be like a title like, God in the Bowl, stuff like that. So just his stories were usually like novellas, and a lot of the other characters that Conan meets are usually just like I bumped into them, and they kind of work together because it's just easier to do that sometimes. So
yeah, I mean, it definitely is easier. It's like more because then his other companion, I forget his name, but he was played by Jerry Lopez, I believe.
Yeah, the archer guy.
Yeah, he was just another thief that he bumped into.
Yeah. Well, sometimes, I mean, if you know you're like a thief and you can get more food, why not?
Honor among thieves. Right?
Exactly. Yeah. So.
Plus, then, Conan has no history, basically. He worked the wheel for like 20 years, so who do you meet there,
Yeah. I wonder if his water cooler talk's really good. He's like, how about that game last night? And they're like, shut up. All right.
He's like, I guess I'll go back and spin that thing.
Some of your other actors in here are probably the biggest known person, besides everyone we named, is Mako, however you say it. He is
he has a really weird character.
Yeah, he plays a wizard. He's also
like
the narrator.
Wizard narrator.
Yeah. And they pretty much let you know through the narration that this guy follows Conan from then on.
Yeah.
And becomes
but you don't know who it is for the first at least half of the movie.
Yeah. So when you finally meet him as a character, he's this fucking weird dude.
And the narration is actually him being like, and this is when I met my lord.
Yeah.
And then he comes out of this weird teepee.
If any of you have ever watched the cartoon Avatar: The Last Airbender, he played Uncle Iroh and is kind of critically acclaimed for that role. His voice acting's always been kind of spot on and really good. He knows how to deliver a line. He has a very gravelly but high mystical sounding voice. It's an amazing kind of tone to it.
It's unique.
Yeah.
You're not and find another voice like his. As
he aged, it just got better, honestly. So no, I mean this cast is, for a fantasy film in the early 80s, this is the kind of cast you want. Yeah,
I mean, a movie like this, I feel like you go big on that star. Yeah. This is pretty early into Arnie's career, right? Terminator had come out, after this?
After that, yeah. This is after he was Mr. Olympia twice. Yeah. And I think the second time was in training for this movie. And he probably was Mr. Universe or something like that, whatever the other muscle contest is. But he was already Hercules, and he maybe had done one or two other smaller roles. He started doing movies smaller bits while they were getting ready to make this movie because he just had months to wait. Practice. Yeah. And so he had to learn how to act basically because his Hercules in New York movie he was in, he was dubbed over the entire time. It's really weird if you ever look it up. But yeah, Arnold, he grew his hair out for this movie.
Yeah.
He wanted natural long hair for it, and he had like beautiful long flowing hair.
He definitely had long flowing hair.
He learned how to do a lot of his own stunts as well as Sandahl Bergman.
That I believe.
Yeah.
I mean, the choreography and the stunt work's fine. I mean, it's Arnold Schwarzenegger. His acting's like not that great, especially here. But Conan the Barbarian as a character kind of suits that, you know?
Yeah, and traditionally Conan, like from the writing, is more like your silent type, your strong type, but he is actually intelligent as well. So with Arnold, you want to show that he's like kind of cunning, because he does that pretty well. Like when he dresses up in the costumes in the film, he kind of pulls that off, even though it's ridiculous. It's like Arnold's charismatic enough where it works. You know, you're like, okay, that's stupid but funny. You earlier said you found parts of this movie boring. It sounded like just kind of dragged.
That's correct.
Yeah, I have a very big love for this movie, even though it's a ridiculous film. But I think it's a testament to not using dialogue, which sounds strange because I'm like also
there's a lot
writer.
Of show don't tell.
yeah, they do show don't tell like really, really well.
And I mean, writing is more than just the dialogue.
Exactly. Yeah. But no. It's 20 minutes until we hear anything from Arnold Schwarzenegger in this film.
Yeah, and there's long periods where there'll be 8 to 10 minutes with literally no dialogue. Like battles with no dialogue either side.
Yeah.
Barely a grunt even.
Yeah.
And that's just very weird.
What's cool is you can mute this entire film and probably still get the main points if you just watched it.
Yeah, I mean, most of it is on mute.
Yeah. So. It's like I said, I think that's a testament more to, if you see it in a positive, it's to the direction, the choreography, the writing itself towards the storytelling without using words. I enjoy stuff like that a lot. It's almost like an experimental take on a action film.
I like to imagine like, what if Joss Whedon was told for the Avengers they had to do these like long silent battles?
God, yeah.
It's like, what do I do with my quips?
Yeah, I got all these quips. I don't know what to do.
Well, Max, you said you're a big fan of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think it did at the box office?
I feel like it probably did decently, but I don't know early 80s numbers that well. So
here's some early 80s numbers for you. Its budget, cool 16 mil.
Jeez, that sounds ridiculous now.
Right? 39.6 million domestic. So
okay,
not great.
It at least made in 80s money. It made probably not most of its budget, but it made enough of its budget back.
Yeah, they did say it went pretty well under their expectations, but it still did make some money. Its opening weekend was 9.6 million, which was number one ahead of Porky's.
Okay,
and another sword and sorcery movie called The Sword and The Sorcerer. When I saw that on the Box Office Mojo page, I was like, oh, that's kind of funny. It's probably similar. And I clicked on it. It also made 39 million. And it came out just a few weeks prior.
I wonder how many double features were playing with that.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a good one if you're really looking for your sword and sorcery nut. So I'll reference my sword and sorcery nut mix. You have seen Sword and Sorcerer, The Sword and The Sorcerer as well.
Yeah.
We watched the trailer. It looks way cheesier.
Yeah.
The triple sword is probably its biggest cultural impact.
It shoots blades out. It's
as stupid as it sounds.
Yeah. I watched this, I want to say a couple months ago. I had some downtime between some work situations, and I was like, let me just knock out a lot of movies. And so I watched Sword and Sorcerer. It is stupid. I'll say that. The main character, I want to say his name is something to do with the word wolf, but I don't remember. But he looks like, I don't know if you guys know the meme. It's either Joan or Joanne, the scammer. He looks like that, but like really muscly, which nobody gets that. So I tell people all the time whenever this movie has come up, which is twice so far for some reason for me.
There you go.
This is the second time.
You're welcome.
But no, it's a fun movie to watch if you want to laugh at something. I'm sure there's a riff tracks out there as well. It seems like that kind of movie.
Well, can you guess what its Rotten Tomatoes score is?
Ooh. Can you give me any hints?
No.
Is it 70 on the dot?
No.
Okay, let's guess 22.
22? The Sword and the Sorcerer is an 80% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Wow. That's amazing.
Owen Wilson agrees.
It's that's really funny.
It's funny because we were watching and talking about it right before the movie came out, or right before we started recording, and you said Sword and Sorcerer is way worse than Conan. And that was right when I read that.
It's off of 5 reviews.
Still counts.
It still counts.
Yeah.
Not enough for us, but it's
not enough for us.
Yeah.
But we'll talk more about it when we get to our 80% movie.
Yeah, we'll have to bring that back up. That's true. No, I mean, Conan is definitely an interesting film. I
think it's so much a genre film.
Oh, totally. It kind of sets a lot of genre tropes as well. So.
Yeah. I am not so into like a lot of the over the top action that we see in perhaps a Conan the Barbarian 2011 with Jason Momoa. So I was pleasantly surprised that Conan the Barbarian is not like that. Yeah. I was expecting it to be in that vein. But I will say that for me, the storytelling left something to be desired. Like I couldn't tell you a lot of the details now.
Yeah.
Like I had to look some of the things up. Like when you were talking about how Max von Sydow wasn't evil, I was just like, yeah. And I just didn't remember it all. Yeah. And the whole princess thing, I forgot about that. And then I was remembering at the end, oh yeah, they were horsing her away.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say.
I mean, you don't have to say anything. But,
it's
I mean, like you said, it's a distinct storytelling style to rely on that show, not tell really. And I mean, there's some exposition at the start, but there's no like mentor explaining everything to Conan throughout. So a lot of the details of the world can kind of fall. Like when that witch, I thought the witch had died, but apparently she just like zipped away and
she turned into fire.
Yeah, so
he was banging this witch, and then she turned crazy.
Yeah, she turned into a snake fire,
as you would do.
Fire. We've all been there.
Yeah. So,
but anyways, there are some details that it was hard to connect the dots at the time, and then later they would connect, and so the whole package got a little jumbled for me. A little jostled in transit.
Well, jostling. I mean, we just mentioned the sex thing. It's a weird film for the time period too, because coming off of the last like previous 2 decades, you have this kind of like the sexual revolution and a lot of like push towards like men and women, like equality. You know, feminism was on the rise. And Conan the Barbarian is very much like this. It seems like this masculine film, you know, and it very much is like a muscle man running around. But I was reading there's all this like controversy at the time based around how it's like this manly man. It's kind of a rejection of like emasculation of men. That's what a lot of people read it as, which is funny to me now because like, I don't know, some of the tropes in it just seem just kind of there. Like,
at the start, he's like, I mean, it's Schwarzenegger, obviously, so he's super muscly, but he's like a slave that they keep in a cage.
Yeah.
And like they bring him around all these cities to like have sex with the women and stuff.
They breed him.
Yeah. So that was a little weird.
Yeah. And it's just like a lot of people were criticizing it at the time, saying it's just like, you know, plain male fantasy, which I get. I mean, I could totally see it from that lens. It's easy to see, but it's kind of interesting because I mean, there's so many more movies. Like I feel like you were saying now, like, you know, the trailer for the new Conan looked more just like dumb violence. But then
and part of that is just because like movies have changed. And that's okay.
And with depictions of women, like I mean, they haven't really gotten much better since this time period. Like maybe now in a modern film, you'd have like 3 female characters with names as opposed to like maybe 2. Yeah.
Like there's Valyria and then the
princess
king's daughter.
Yeah. So like that's literally now you'd have like Valyria, the princess, and one other person with a name.
And the witch would have a name.
Yeah. And so it's kind of weird to see how like, that was like, you know, people came at it for that. Yeah. And now we're moderately better.
Not that much.
Not that much.
So like one of the big tests along this line, they call the Bechdel test. I think we've mentioned it before, where basically the test is if 2 women have a conversation about something other than a man. Yeah. A movie passes, and like a shockingly high amount don't pass. Yeah. And this one does not pass.
No.
And I am assuming that 2011 doesn't either.
I don't remember.
We'd have to confirm that. I don't want to slander it too much. Yeah, Worth noting, by the way, Conan the Barbarian 2011 had a $90 million budget and it only made 21.
Nice, yeah. So that is...
It's about as much as I want to show up to a remake.
I remember it was kind of like some people at the time, like there's book fans that just really love Robert E. Howard's work.
Yeah.
And there's more like the movie fans, and some people, more the movie side, were upset that Arnold wasn't involved in that. I don't think he necessarily wanted
old Arnold back in a Conan movie for.
I'm glad you said that, actually. I mentioned earlier, remind me about Unforgiven.
Oh.
A couple of years ago, I want to say it was Paul Verhoeven, actually, was interested in running his own version of Conan called like Legend of Conan. And Paul Verhoeven's worked with Arnold before. He did Total Recall with him.
Yeah.
I want to say it was Paul Verhoeven. But he had an idea for an old Conan movie where Conan, he's just not as good anymore. His body's broken. He's, worn down like Unforgiven. That's what he kept selling it as, like the Unforgiven with Conan the Barbarian. Like that's what I want.
That sounds interesting. That pitch is good.
And it got some traction at the time. A couple years back, it was like doing pretty good, and then
we still have Arnold on that contract.
Yeah, then it apparently just like never actually took off. But I hearing that, I'm like, yeah, let's get that going. Yeah. That'd be cool.
What would you call it? Because there's Conan the Barbarian, Conan the Destroyer. So it's gonna be Conan the.
Two thoughts on that. Paul Verhoeven was trying to sell his as the Legend of Conan. That's what he was calling it. Now, I want to say Destroyer ends with a title card saying Conan will return and Conan the Conqueror.
Okay.
So that was long rumored for a while that they were going to go ahead and make that one. Never happened. He did make his third movie for them out of his 5-picture deal, which was Red Sonja with Brigitte Nielsen, which is another
That's a Conan movie?
No, he just started making pictures for the company that weren't Conan.
So
he did
just a 5-picture deal for whatever.
Yeah, they were hoping
happened to be Conan.
They were hoping for Conan sequels out of him, but it just ended up being random movies.
Just ended up being twins.
Just to fill it. Yeah. So, no, I mean,
but Conan the King.
Red Sonja is bad, so let's just push that one aside. Conan the Destroyer, Conan the Conqueror, like I said, was a rumored one.
Well, I'm saying for Old Man Conan, what do you call that one?
Conan
the Unforgiven.
Conan the Unforgiven. That's a good one there. Conan. You could take the Legend of Conan to make it Conan the Legend. That'd be kind of cool.
Yeah, that works.
So, yeah. There's,
hey, audience members, if you get an idea for that Old Man Conan title, write it in the comments.
Yeah, do it.
Interaction
in our comments, y'all.
Yeah.
You and I were watching this together.
Correct.
And you mentioned something that made me laugh later as I was doing my research, which you were like, you just leaned over and you're like, every fantasy movie has this music right here. And it was him marching through the desert trying to get somewhere. Yeah. And I was like, yeah, actually you're right. Every fantasy movie does have that. Did some research. The soundtrack was by, I think it's Basil Polidoris. Anyway, they use that, a lot of the Conan soundtrack as a temp track in most movies.
And that makes sense because it's like the same 7 songs make every fantasy movie. Like your opening exposition or monologue, your battle
prologue,
scene.
basically.
Yeah, all this stuff. Even Lord of the Rings has. I mean, Lord of the Rings, I think, uses its music better than your average
most
movie.
Movies, yeah.
Yeah. So it's a little different, but even that hits a lot of those same beats. So
yeah, the kind of the upbeat traveling music, then the scattered worried traveling music later.
The battle music. The romantic moment music.
Yeah.
The character turn discovery music.
I mean, you hit the nail on the head when you said it. I was just like, wow, this is every fantasy song.
And it's fine here. It's good music.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not a world beater.
It kind of set the bar, I guess. So, Arnold apparently was reading the comics before the script was written because that's all there was to really get his hands on.
And you said there's novels and comics?
There's original novels and novellas and short stories. Then I want to say Marvel maybe started rolling out some Conan comics in the 70s. Okay. They got pretty big, and that combination.
Him in the Avengers.
Yeah, let's do it, man. I'm down. But no, so he apparently was doing that for a while.
And Robert Jordan, is that right?
That's the
Robert Howard.
Robert Howard, yeah.
Robert Howard, was he involved in the comics?
I don't think so. I think he passed away by then. I want to say he may have committed suicide, but I'm not sure off the top of my head.
Well, that's a lot darker than I was expecting my question to go. Well, what else could we have watched?
Ooh, that's a big one. We've had a lot of options.
This is a good list. You were very gung ho on Conan, which was fine because I think it was a good choice. But what else did we have?
Well, we had I Am Legend.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't like this one, but I liked it. I thought it was fine.
I thought the ending was a cop-out, and then when I saw the other option for the ending, it felt more real for the story.
Yeah.
Which I didn't know when I saw the theories. I was just like, I mean, he's going to die. He's going to blow himself up, whatever. But there was an alternate ending they filmed where he survives and escapes with the people.
Yeah.
And it just felt more complete for the character.
It's funnier to me because sometimes people are like, oh, he has plot armor. It's such a cop-out for him to survive. Here it's the opposite.
Yeah,
That's what I've never fully gotten. But with the character arc, maybe.
With the arc for me, it just worked better. I just remember when I saw it, because I saw it in theaters, I want to say opening weekend.
Yeah.
And I was like...
It was a big release.
I was like, this isn't... It just didn't... I didn't feel satisfied watching it. Yeah. If he had died in a way that felt satisfying, I think I would have been fine with it, because, I mean, I'm fine with that kind of shit. Yeah. You know?
The book is really good, and it's super short.
That's cool.
It's
I've watched the Charlton Heston original movie that was based off the book.
I didn't know there was a original movie.
Yeah, it might be the same name, but it might be something else. I think it's Omega Man. It's actually called Omega Man. Yeah.
Okay. The book is pretty different than the movie.
I'm guessing the Charlton Heston movie might be closer to the book, but it might not be.
Well, it's worth exploring.
Yeah, worth looking into.
Yeah.
We also had Sherlock Holmes.
Love this movie.
This is the Guy Ritchie one, right?
Yep.
I do like this one.
It's really good. It's just fun.
Yeah. It captures the Guy Ritchie style really well.
Yeah, this captures Guy Ritchie a lot better than King Arthur, Legend of the Sword.
I'll have to watch that eventually and compare.
It's fine, but it's just so boring. And King Arthur does all the character development in montage, so none of it works.
I heard you
never buy into it.
I don't even know what it means, but I heard somebody who's film criticism I kind of enjoy. I think I saw on Twitter saying that the street ruffian parts of it were better than the kingly parts of it. And I was like, I don't really know what that means, but it sounds more Guy Ritchie.
Yeah, I mean, there's a 20 minutes of King Arthur as this street urchin.
Yeah.
And running a gang sort of. I don't know. It's why are we talking about it? Sherlock Holmes is good.
Limitless.
Apparently they have greenlit the third Sherlock Holmes movie. That's actually happening.
Nice.
I don't know when, because Guy Ritchie I think is on Aladdin. Right?
Yeah. On this magic carpet ride.
Who knows when they're gonna fit in?
Limitless.
Limitless is a good movie.
Which one's this one?
This one's Bradley Cooper. It's that classic drug that opens up the rest of your brain.
I didn't see this one.
It's fine.
It's like Lucy.
Yeah, except Lucy I think tries to touch on the science side of it more. Here it's just
drop in that Morgan Freeman for me.
No.
Fine. Damn. Dodgeball.
Dodgeball's fine. Yeah.
I like Dodgeball. Yeah. From that era of comedies, I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, it's not my favorite from that era personally.
There's just some dumb quotes in it that made me laugh a lot, and that stuck with me. Yeah. And one of them was, I'm going to skip it. It's not worth it.
Did Dodgeball Reborn, the Chuck Norris meme? It had a lot of fuel to that. When Chuck Norris is just at the end of it.
I don't even remember that. I have no memory of this place.
Of the Chuck Norris place?
Of everything you just said. I remember Dodgeball, but I don't remember Dodgeball Reborn or Chuck Norris.
No, I'm not saying Dodgeball Reborn was a movie. I'm saying Dodgeball was the rebirth of Chuck Norris as a meme.
Oh, okay.
Because Chuck Norris was a judge at the end.
Oh, yeah. Okay. That's very confusing for me. I was like, Dodgeball Reborn.
Dodgeball Reborn starring Chuck Norris?
I mean,
in a post-apocalyptic world.
Ooh, in a world.
I'll leave it there.
The Goonies.
Goonies is great.
Goonies is a good movie.
I like the Goonies a lot. Got a Goonies poster.
Do you think they'll ever make that Goonies sequel they keep saying they're going to make?
They'll probably just remake it. And
God, please.
Here's what's going to happen, okay? 2020, Goonies remade with the kid from Stranger Things is going to be in it.
Damn. Which one? Toothless?
No, maybe actually. Toothless could be in it. He hasn't really been in much else, though, has he? No, the one who's in it as well.
Finn Wolfrider or something.
Yeah, Finn Wolfrider will be in it.
Yeah.
That's going to happen.
He might also be in Highlander if they ever remake that movie.
Really?
I don't know.
Highlander's weird, man. I don't get it.
Have you watched it?
No.
Yeah, you probably won't like it.
All right.
I love it.
Austin Powers.
Austin Powers is good.
I've been wanting to rewatch Austin Powers.
I
been a while.
watched it about a year ago.
Yeah, we've talked about this.
It still holds up. I don't like the sequels.
You don't like the sequel. I like the second one. I thought the second one was good, but I was also like 12.
I hated it at the time.
Yeah. I remember not liking Goldmember at all.
The only thing I liked about Goldmember was like the cameos, and Beyonce looks really good in it. But
yeah, she does.
You know, that's it.
Yeah. Aren't they making another Austin Powers too?
I hope if they do, it's like Casino Royale. That's all I want. I want Mike Myers doing parkour and like actually Mike Myers doing it. That's what
Mike
I want.
Myers is kind of he was like out of the light for a while after like the Love Guru, I think, right?
Yeah, and he deserved that. He earned those stripes.
Wow.
Wow.
But he's back on like the Gong Show or something.
Him and Dana Carvey are trying to get careers again.
I only support one.
We also had Empire of the Sun.
Yeah.
We both don't really have any thoughts on that.
Steven Spielberg.
It looked like Oscar bait.
In Japan, yeah. Young Christian Bale. Baby Bale.
Baby Bale.
Baby.
Yeah. So we had some good choices, man.
Yeah. We should talk about James Earl Jones and Conan.
God, yeah. Okay, so we could just give a quick... It's a super easy plot to get. James Earl Jones plays Thulsa Doom. He kills Conan's family.
Yeah.
Conan's taken as a slave.
Yeah.
Conan becomes a really good fighter because he's super muscular because he's been spinning a wheel for 20 years.
Yeah, so let's dwell on this for a while because it's my most interesting part of the movie. And this is something you see all the time in these like depictions of fantasy worlds or like medieval times. It's just a big stone pillar with handles that people spin.
Yeah.
I think it's grinding something.
I think it was some kind of grist mill.
But I don't know. Yeah.
That's what I think. Apparently the dragon heads on it were like actual replicas of a Viking dragon ship, which means nothing to me. But that's the only thing I could find on that wheel.
Conan was spinning that wheel for 20 plus years.
Yeah, easily.
From when he was a babe to when he was
from like
an Arnie.
13 10-year-olds to one Arnie spinning it.
Yeah.
And this ginger kid like tied him up to it. And then when he came back later, he was like with a full beard and an older guy. I was like, come on. And he takes him gladiating, and he does pretty good killing people. Yeah. So then they make a bunch of money off him, and then the ginger dude takes him to the East, is all they say. Yeah. And he learns like the martial arts of the East. So he learns fighting, he learns sword fighting, he learns everything, and makes them even more money. They start studying him out, and then
makes them even more money.
Yeah. And then ginger dude has like this like change of consciousness or change of heart. They say he just like they don't know why, but his master was freed by the slave owner. Yeah. And he says something like he's like, just go, you've earned your freedom. Yeah. And so they just make it seem like it's a change of heart. But so then Conan just takes off running. He gets chased by some
dogs, right?
Some crazed, hungered dogs, which apparently I was reading an interview were actually like really mean dogs. And so Arnold was like literally running because he was scared they were going to get him.
Acting.
Yeah. But so he finds this like sword and then decides he's going to, step out and just start thieving. He bangs a witch.
Yeah. Throws her through the fire. Meets his archer friend shortly after. He sleeps in the witch's house after like she flies out. Yeah, that was like the weirdest thing. Yeah. So like he's having sex with this witch. She goes snake eyes on him. He throws her through the fire. She gets out of there and he's like, I'm going to call it a night here.
Yeah, like, well, why waste a good bed?
In her hovel. Yeah, why waste a good bed?
So they take off and they start thieving. You got to think, too, that
was like his first night after being a slave.
Yeah.
You'd think that he'd be like, I'm going to get out of this crazy place. I can do one more night on a rock.
Nah, man. But no, he saw earned that bed.
He saw that goose feather pillow and he was like, all right.
Never forget your first bed, man.
I remember mine fondly.
Yeah, after you're freed. So yeah, him and his archer buddy, they go thieving. They learn how to be good thieves, and then good enough. They get a bunch of money, and he punches a camel.
Yeah, that was amazing. They're like drunk walking through this street, and he just punches a camel, and it dies.
It like falls over. Yeah. And then they see a snake tower. Some dude's like, "Fuck those snake towers, man! They show up everywhere."
They're like, well, let's rob them.
Yeah, so like, let's steal it. Yeah. Well, let's steal a gem from there. And they run to Valyria. They all three are like, let's team up. Yeah. And they start thieving a lot. They make a bunch of money. Yep. King Max von Sydow's like, yo, my daughter's been absorbed in this cult. They have two snakes on their logo. Conan's like, yo, that's the cult that killed my parents.
He's like, yo,
I
this
want
medallion.
vengeance. And there's this whole subplot that's like very weird, but it's his father in the beginning teaches him the steel matters, always trust the steel. Yeah, and people bring this up all the time. The metallurgy involved in making the sword is completely off because you would never cast a steel sword. You would
fold it.
Yeah, you would fold it. But you wouldn't cast it out of like molten metal. And if you shoved that into snow afterwards, it would basically explode and send steel shards in every direction. So I don't know what they did instead, but that's always been so like
magic.
You'll see like nerds all the time be like, you can't cast a sword that way.
Come on, Conan.
Yeah. So
what's Conan's dad's name?
Shit. I don't know if they ever said it. I think they just called him like the master or something in the movie. I don't actually know.
What's his name? Name him right now.
I want to say...
Make your own.
It has to be like Conan, but not Conan. So it'd have to be like Kodak or like Corwin or something. So something like that.
Comstock.
Comstock might actually work. Comstock, the father. Anyway. Where were we? Okay, so...
I watched that movie.
Yeah, so they find out that the princess is taken by a cult.
Yep.
Turns out the cult's Thulsa Doom.
Convenient.
They decide to infiltrate. It goes poorly. Conan technically gets like crucified and killed.
Yeah.
His wizard buddy brings him back to life.
In a really weird
a crazy scene.
Ritual.
Yeah.
It was like they tied him to this rock.
Wrote runes all over him.
Yeah, like it looked like the notes that people would write on their like arm to cheat on a history test or something.
And then the wizard was like, yo, if the demons come, we just got to fight them off. And then the wizard's like, fuck this.
Yeah. It's so scary. Why did this work?
So the thief buddy and Conan's woman, Valeria, chase off all the demons. Conan comes back.
Valeria was her own woman.
That's true.
I will say that was like the dumbest scene in the movie because watching them fight those demons, like I know with the effects and everything.
Yeah.
It's just like off enough that it was
looked
just
pretty good until they started interacting with them themselves. When it was just like crawling over his body, it looked pretty freaky.
Like any movie where there's animation and live action interacting like that, it always is a struggle. That's what makes Who Framed Roger Rabbit so good. They did so good at making those interactions real.
And that's but
I mean, that's like master filmmaking.
And that's like the outlier there.
Yeah,
like most films will not match that, especially from that era.
Yeah, so here it was just like they're flailing their arms and the thing would react a couple seconds later in a different way.
What's interesting is, I mean, that's still a traditional effect because that's like them painting on the film, I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
And which makes sense why it just doesn't match perfectly.
Yeah,
but
how could it?
It's not CG, but it's, like rendering on top of it. Right. But their giant snake they had in the snake tower was animatronic, and it looked pretty good because it was like full-size animatronic.
Is this the one that James Earl Jones turned into?
No, the one that Conan cuts the head off and they shoot when they're stealing the gem. The very
in like the middle of the movie.
Yeah, when they were going to throw the girl down to be sacrificed.
Yeah.
That one was like a mixture of animatronics and I mean it was like probably robotics, like very loose, like.
It didn't have to move much.
No. So it moved just enough how a big giant snake would move. Yeah. And I mean, there's certain scenes where you could tell it's like something plastic filled with, stuffing and mechanical
stuff.
That one
could have been stuffed for its use.
Yeah. But it looked good. I mean, it looked better than
I was uncomfortable.
Probably the 2011's like CG snake would look, because I'm sure it had one. Yeah. So it probably looked better than that.
In fact, it did. It was in the trailer.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. So now, I mean...
So they bring Conan back to life.
They bring Conan back. He's going on a vengeance
He's
for
like
sure
even
now.
more angry now.
They paint themselves to look really cool.
There was like no utility to that.
I'm guessing it was either warrior paint or camouflage, but they never explained it. I will say that was...
But the paint was black and white.
Black, white, and red, I think.
What camouflage does that?
I mean, from a distance, that might work for like stone. I don't really know. I'm making this up as I go, but... No, so they sneak back into the cult. There's this big orgy going on.
Yeah.
They manage to fight. I forget. They steal the princess back. Yeah. They take off on the horses. Valeria gets shot by a snake arrow.
Yeah, the snake arrows were pretty cool.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
He like cuts the head off a snake and this is James Earl Jones. Yeah. And it becomes an arrow.
Does he even he cuts the head off?
I think he does. Huh. He does something because it goes from an actual snake to like a rigid
stiff
arrow.
Snake, yeah.
And then it's like a heat seeker, basically.
Yeah. It always gets his target.
Maybe a heart seeker.
Ooh.
They don't bring her back to life, though.
No, they didn't even try, which is strange.
They're like, She's no Conan.
Yeah, she might have said something though. She might have been like, "I'm dead," but
She's like, "Don't you dare bring me back."
She's like, "Fuck those demons."
Yeah. She's like, "I saw that shit. I don't want it."
Yeah, but she kind of does come back.
Oh.
So then Conan's really out for revenge, but they have like a big pyre and stuff and burn her or something, and so he knows he's still being followed.
Yeah.
So he sets up this giant trap zone. Tulsa and his boys show up and they go at it.
Yep.
It's a really big fight. It's like probably the most action in the movie happens in this climax scene,
sure.
which I mean, most of it for me worked pretty well. There's some good gore, but it's not too overly gory.
No.
There's some funny moments. Valeria shows back up as like a shiny ghost and is like, "Do you want to live forever?" Yeah, and then and then she like helps him defeat some guy, then vanishes again. And I mean, long story short, Thulsa escapes, but Conan has saved the princess because she realized he was about to kill her. Yeah. And Conan stops it.
She was up like tied to the stone that was like the bait, and then he was about to use another heat seeker arrow, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good job.
And the archer deflected it, I think.
What was the character's name
for the archer?
Yeah, I forget. He had like a one-word name.
Yeah, hold on. This is not.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
Okay.
Subutai.
Yeah, that's his
Subati.
name. Yeah. Subutai. So yeah, it's
he was like the loyal. Yeah. I mean, he had pretty much no.
He's like there. Sidekick, but he's like competent sidekick, not like goofy sidekick.
Yeah, he's not the bumbling idiot.
Yeah.
And then that's where it ends, right?
Well, then Conan tracks down Thulsa back to his like a big lair, and Thulsa there. He's like, you know, I'm God, this and that.
Yeah,
all the cultists are like super excited.
Yeah.
And then Conan hacks his head off and tosses it down into the crowd and is just like, "Fuck yo gods."
And like everyone just runs.
Yeah, they all just run, and then he saves
we're done.
The princess is with him, so he just like helps her back home. But
saves her again.
Yeah. But I mean, she was with him the whole time, I guess. So no, and that, I mean, that's pretty much the film there. Yeah. And then it ends up with like another kind of like epilogue with the wizard saying, you know, he became a king, but that's a story for another time.
His character name was Wizard of the Mounds.
Or narrator.
I'd like to be the Wizard of the Mounds.
I think he calls himself Chronicler in the beginning, and that's what I've always thought of him as instead.
That makes more sense than Wizard of the Mounds.
That does sound weird.
I already made that joke.
So I mean, overall, it's a pretty simple story.
Yeah.
Which I will say the source material, the overall like character arcs made the stories interesting.
Yeah.
With the film, it's more simplified characters for sure.
Yeah, I mean, like Subutai and Valeria have essentially no characterization, so there's no progression for their characters really. Yeah, Valeria a little because she falls in love with Conan, but there's no real reason for it other than like, look at that body.
Yeah.
So
and
even the villain, like he's a villain at the opening of the movie. It's just like, oh, he's already evil.
Yeah.
There's no, this is why he's the snake god.
The interesting thing is there was definitely seeds of like making him super interesting because in the beginning he wants the steel. That's why he attacked that village.
Yeah.
And then when Conan finally gets caught trying to sneak in, he's like, I used to want steel, but I don't care about steel now. Flesh is more strong. And he's like, you jump off that. And somebody just jumps off and commits suicide. Yeah. And he's like, see, flesh is more powerful.
I remember thinking, I was like, that's a weird way to land, on the ground. And then they zoomed into her and she's just dead on the ground. I'm like, right.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so I mean, his whole point was like, why does he need a sword if he can control people? Which is like a super interesting concept for a fantasy movie. Yeah. And then, I mean, the whole thing is the sword doesn't actually matter. It's the man behind the sword. Yeah. Because the sword ends up breaking. So
they should have used a little more with Thulsa Doom, like when Conan was coming after him like commanding people to like jump in front of the sword and stuff, like to show that that's what he's doing. Yeah,
that could have been pretty cool.
Because really, he doesn't have like other than the snake arrows.
Yeah,
he doesn't like Thulsa Doom doesn't have like an action thing.
Yeah,
the first scene of the movie where Thulsa Doom kills Conan's mother is super weird. It's just like incredibly slow motion, like
poetic
music
almost.
swelling zoom in on James Earl Jones's just face.
Yeah,
is these beautiful blue eyes
and this like banged bob haircut.
Yeah, and the strangest haircut.
It's amazing.
It's
like both beautiful and disgusting at the same time.
Yeah, it's like the line.
Yeah.
And then he just like cuts her down and leaves, but it was legitimately like at least 45 seconds of slow-mo on his face.
Yeah.
And it was very odd to me.
It's I mean, there's a lot of odd choices in this film.
Yeah.
Like I said, for me it just works because it's just so fucking weird and good.
Yeah, I like that it was like so committed to being itself.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You could have done a lot of things to make it more generic, but maybe a quote unquote better movie, like a more technically sound movie or whatever.
Yeah.
Like a more traditional storytelling, but they just don't, and it's fine because it's Conan.
Yeah. And some of the shots in this movie I just fucking love. Like when he's doing the sword practicing before the big battle. Like I don't know what it is. It's just a great shot. It's like a wide medium shot.
Yeah, with like all blue and gray sky behind it.
Yeah, and it's just Conan like it's Arnold Schwarzenegger using his body to move a sword, so it's like visually compelling. Yeah. So stuff like that just like really for me has just always worked because it's unique, you know? Yeah. Like all the stuff Arnold's done since then has been pretty, I mean, arguably
done great
better
stuff. Oh, for sure. Yeah, like Terminator, Predator, Twins.
Exactly. But seeing him in this form is like purely meant for him.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, this is a different Arnold than you even get in like Twins, which was 8 years later, something. Yeah. So it's kind of insane, but I mean, they're so different tonally.
Yeah, you can tell he learned a lot. James Earl Jones and Max von Sydow actually would trade with him fitness lessons for acting lessons.
That makes sense.
So they would learn a little bit from him. He would learn from them, which is a great
Max
concept.
von Sydow's still rocking that bod.
Yeah, dude, he's fucking pumped.
I think the kind of cool thing was it does have all that physique of Arnold's, but it's like, it's not even like overtly sexual about it.
Yeah.
Like I feel like, without knowing, like the Jason Momoa one was much more, I don't know, just because he's such a heartthrob and stuff.
Yeah.
It's easier for them to cash in on it. But here it was almost subtle.
Yeah.
Like they have Conan wearing a lot of robes and stuff. Like it's not like he's always wearing a loincloth or something. And he's literally studded out at parts of the movie. And even then, you're not thinking sexually the whole time.
And what's funny, I mean, like I said earlier, there was a lot of criticisms at the time.
Yeah.
But what's funny now is like when he's studded, he wraps a blanket around the girl to give her some privacy. Yeah. These like creeps watch.
Yeah.
And then when him and Valeria hook up, like they're like draped in like robes, like you said, and they're like rubbing each other's chests. And I read later, like both of them had never done a sex scene before, so they were both like really awkward about it. No. And I guess that was like the first scene they filmed like sexually for the movie. So like they both felt really weird, but in the movie they're just like, it's more intimate than it is sexual. Mm-hmm. Like eventually they do it, but it's them like talking and rubbing and stuff like that. Yeah. But it's funny that like now, I mean, you think of like a barbarian depiction, speaking of Jason Momoa, Khal Drogo. Yeah. He's like this sexualized, like hyper sexual like force of nature that's like almost you can't even control.
It's like he marauds and then he has sex with everyone.
Yeah, like rapers and pillagers and stuff. And so it's almost funny to see the more poetic version of a barbarian and then to see like, you know, the more, I don't know what you say, vulgar version of it.
Yeah, and I mean that's you talk about how Conan has nuance, and maybe it doesn't come across as much here because Arnold is a little limited or the writing was a little limited with it. But there are those touches where it's not like he's just like, and I'll have sex with your woman, king.
Yeah.
Like, it's not that at all.
Yeah. No, it's there. The threads are there. It's just, it's a ridiculous film at the same time. So it's kind of hard to like be both, you know? But I will say like, if you ever watch Destroyer, which I doubt you will, but if you just for some reason did, like you would see this one would probably elevate in your head just by comparison.
Sure.
If you ever saw any of Red Sonja, you would just probably gouge your eyes out.
I don't understand the relation.
It's the same company.
Is Red Sonja also a fantasy movie?
It's a fantasy series.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll show you the trailer actually, but
that's okay.
I'll show you. You just you won't like it.
I might leave. One thing I didn't like with Conan is like after he dies the first time and he comes back to life, it's like that whole revenge plot of the slaying of his family is just gone. It's like they never had a payoff for that. I didn't feel at that point it was like, well, you killed me. He never mentions like this is for my mom or something, which that I'm saying it sounds stupid, but that's kind of what it started as. And it's like that he just kind of gave that up the first time he was crucified.
I'll take that part as a strength that he never says like this is for.
Well,
so-and-so.
yeah, I'm not saying he should have said that, but there was nothing where it was like, oh, I finally have closure about my parents. You know,
I think it was all rolled into one with Valeria. Yeah. So I think while his parents were his past, and his head Valeria was his future. So losing her was more like, he had to get vengeance for that. So
deep.
Yeah. A little too deep, probably, but
maybe not.
No, I mean, if you've never seen Conan, I definitely think it's one of those movies you should check out.
I think it's on streaming somewhere, right? Prime, maybe.
I feel like it might be.
Maybe not though.
Maybe not.
And if it's not, rent it.
Yeah,
rent it and join the conversation.
Leave comments on our blog.
Leave them on the blog. Leave them on the Facebook. Is there anywhere else? That's it. Twitter.
You could tweet at us. Conan. All right. No, it's if you're interested in sword and sorcery, I definitely say check out either this movie, check out
the Sword and the Sorcerer.
The Sword and the Sorcerer, because it's a fucking hilarious film.
It made about as much money.
Check out Robert E. Howard's Conan stories. Check out the Dark Horse and Marvel comics.
Yeah.
There's some cool shit there.
Yeah.
I've brought up before, I think in our top 5 guilty pleasures, I mentioned Fire and Ice, the Frank Frazetta. Yeah. That's Sword and Sorcery.
Nice.
So yeah, there's shit out there. It's good.
Cool,
there's some good shit out there.
And this isn't that bad.
It's like low fantasy.
This movie's not the kind of movie that I would sign up for, like, even though I did here, but like on my own on a Saturday night, I wouldn't be like, oh, let's throw Conan the Barbarian in. But it was fine.
Yeah. I'm
not mad that I watched it.
And you
I would have been happier if they cut it at a cool 90.
Yeah. I'm trying to think, like,
but that's just me.
There's so many 80s films that probably should have been a 90, and
there's a reason that 90 is kind of the standard nowadays.
Yeah. So
like when someone asks me to watch a movie and it's like 2 hours and 20 minutes, I'm usually like,
yeah,
that's an investment.
It is.
140 minutes.
I got shit to do.
I got shit to do.
Scott, where can the good people find us?
Oh shit. I'm not ready for this. You can find us being studded out to other podcasters, or you can find us at the Critical Breakdown, at Breakdowncast on Twitter.
TheCriticalBreakdown.com.
And TheCriticalBreakdown.com.
Yeah, and on Twitter.
And on Twitter at Breakdowncast. I just realized I never listened to you at that part. I'm usually laughing at your thing. You can find me. Commanding people to jump off ledges, or you can find me at breakdown_Scott on Instagram.
You can find me with my cool ass bob hair flashing my baby blues at the camera, or you can find me at Max Rivera Film on Twitter. Josh Rivera did our artwork.
Jason Brand did our music.
Wally does our farts because he's the podcasted dog.
Yeah.
We have everything. Rate us and review us on iTunes.
We have everything.
Literally everything.
We have everything.
Everything. So don't even worry about that. Just Google us, find us, give us stars.
I like this sentence for you. Said we have everything. Don't even worry about that.
Don't even worry about it. We have the best things.
Yeah.
So
give us that rating.
Yeah, man.
All right, guys. Next week on The Critical Breakdown.
We're popping on our dresses and watching Mrs. Doubtfire.
Rated 71% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Better watch out for those drive-by fruitings.